Nestled deep within the embrace of an ancient forest, the village of Thimwood lived as though time itself had forgotten it. Its humble cottages, with roofs thatched by hand and walls carved from the surrounding trees, stood quietly under the canopy of towering oaks and maples. The villagers, a hardy and superstitious folk, believed the forest protected them. It provided their food, their shelter, and the stories they shared around crackling fires. To them, the outside world, with its nobles, wars, and chaos, was a distant, almost mythical place. It began on a cold, moonlit night. The air was crisp and carried the faint scent of pine and damp earth. Most of Thimwood's inhabitants had retired to their beds, leaving only a handful awake to tend to the village's nocturnal needs. It was these few who first spotted the figure staggering from the tree line. His steps were uneven, his body slumped as if pulled forward by some unseen force. His skin, pale and ghostly in the moonlight, was streaked with blood. The figure collapsed at the village's edge, his head landing in the dirt with a dull thud. The watchers rushed to his side, their lanterns casting flickering light over his trembling frame. He raised a hand, fingers twitching as though reaching for something only he could see. When he spoke, his voice was a hoarse whisper, barely audible over the night's quiet. "Aruru!" His hand fell, his body stilling as death claimed him. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. The name he had spoken was not unknown to them. It lingered in the cautionary tales foreigners told, stories of shadowy nomads, cursed by blood magic, who roamed the lands in search of prey. Yet no one truly believed such horrors could reach their quiet haven. The guards dismissed the man's warning as the ramblings of a delirious outsider. But the unease he brought lingered like a shadow over Thimwood. 3 nights later, the first attack came. A scream tore through the stillness of the night, sharp and sudden. By the time the villagers gathered their courage and their weapons to investigate, they found only bloodstains and silence. The home of the Miller family was in disarray, its door splintered and its interior smeared with crimson streaks. Of the family themselves, there was no sign. Tracks led into the forest, but none dared follow them. The following night, it happened again, and then again. The attackers were glimpsed only briefly, figures with pale bluish-violet skin, their bodies marked by scars, runes, and wore paint as dark as the night itself. They moved with terrifying speed, vanishing and reappearing like ghosts, striking under the cover of darkness and leaving only death and fear in their wake. The villagers' attempts at defense proved futile. Swords and arrows seemed to pass through the attackers as though they were shadows given form. Worse still, the dead did not stay dead. Some of those taken in the night would return, changed. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, their movements eerily fluid as they joined the ranks of their tormentors. By the time the sun rose on the second day, Thimwood was a ghost of its former self. Homes lay abandoned, their windows shattered and doors ajar. Bloodied tools and weapons were strewn about the streets, evidence of desperate but failed resistance. Only a handful of villagers remained, scattered and hiding wherever they could find shelter. Among the survivors were the children, untouched by the carnage. The Aruru, it seemed, had no interest in them. Terrified and confused, the young ones clung to one another, their wide eyes searching the empty village for signs of safety. Among them was Nariri, a sharp-witted girl of 12 who had always been more curious than cautious. It was she who noticed the strange marks on the ground where the Aruru had passed, faint traces of symbols that pulsed faintly in the moonlight. "They're not just hunting," Nariri whispered to the others. As the days passed, Nariri and the other children began piecing together fragments of information. The elders, before they were taken, had spoken of the Aruru's origins, a cursed magic that twisted life and death. The children's immunity to the attacks, whether by chance or design, became their only hope. Nariri, along with her younger brother Finn and a handful of others, resolved to uncover the truth behind the Aruru and find a way to stop them. Guided by Nariri's observations and the stories of the elders, the children ventured into the forest's depths, following the faint symbols left by the Aruru. Each step took them further from the remnants of their village and deeper into a world of shadows and whispers. The forest seemed to change around them, the trees growing denser, their branches twisting into claw-like shapes. Faint whispers echoed through the air, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. At the center of the forest, they found it, a crumbling stone altar, overgrown with moss and vines. The symbol etched into its surface glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat, a sword and a crown. Nariri didn't know what it meant, but she suggested that Finn sketched the emblem with mud on the torn scrap of paper he always carried. The clearing was silent, empty. The Aruru were gone. Nariri could feel it deep within her, as if the forest itself whispered the truth. When the children returned to Thimwood, the village was silent. The forest felt different, its oppressive weight lifted. Though they had survived, the scars of what they had endured would never fade. Nariri and the others vowed to rebuild, to ensure that Thimwood would never again fall prey to such horrors, but as they worked, Nariri couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something still lingered in the shadows, a faint whisper at the edge of her senses, a haunting reminder that the curse of the Aruru might not be truly gone. The thought gnawed at her, and she wondered if she should warn the other villages before it was too late.